I'm curious, have you gotten into situations where you're doing hybrid presentations where you're speaking to an online audience, but you've got an in-person audience too, and somehow you're supposed to keep both of them engaged? That strikes me that is going to be happening more and more, and it's difficult.
Right. I think that's exactly right. And the reverse, where you're in person and it's a hybrid meeting and you're speaking to a group that's online. And when there's a group that's in person and you're coming in virtually. And that's a different skill set as well, because it has to engage that entire audience. And that's where I haven't cracked that. I don't feel like I've cracked that code yet, but I'm excited to try some things because if I don't crack it, somebody's going to, and really be able to play with the in-person audience from a virtual experience. But I did do a conference where it was virtual and they had cameras set out. I guess if I was up on stage, there was one out here and one, I think, over. So they got a side shot of me, and then one that came up this direction. And is part of the question then, how did I navigate that? Is that what you're asking as well?
Well, I was asking you whether you had cracked the code, or whether you had some advice, or at least some lessons that you've learned so far in those situations.
Right. And I've experimented some with that. That was in person. And I did a couple of things. One, I treated the camera as another audience member, but I made sure that I treated the camera like an important audience member. So typically what I try to do is, I'm looking around an in-person room. I try to speak over here and talk really just to one person for a little bit, and then look over here and speak really only to one person, and then maybe right over here and speak to one, and then one over here. But I want to make sure that about every third or fourth time I'm speaking to this person, we tell a story and the audience laughs, and I look over and I find the camera and I want to talk to this person.
Right.
I want to talk to the camera a little bit more, and then I'm going to look over here and talk, and then one more, and then back. And so I might rest on other people, individuals in the in-person audience once or twice in the entire presentation, but I want to come back to that camera and treat that as the VIP in the room about every third or fourth time, because many times what we're finding is, a lot of times they may only have 500, where they might have had 3,000 in the ballroom before. A company or an association might only have 100 to 500 in the room, but then might have 6,000 on the hybrid. So you're speaking to that. So that's one. The second thing that I ended up trying in this group, and I got feedback that it worked really well, was the camera. Let's see if I can. It was sitting, if I was up on the stage, it was sitting over here, right? And so I'm talking to the audience members. I'm trying to talk to it every now and again. And then I told a story where, how would be the best way to replicate this? Let's see, I have all my wires here. I told a story. Oh, maybe it'll stretch. The camera's over here. So the second key is to remain nimble, because things can happen, like the earbuds flying out. But I was speaking, up on the stage. This is about the angle it was getting. I'm talking to people and the camera. And then I started telling the story that I went it was in college, and I went and I sat down in the dean's office and had a conversation with the dean, and the dean's talking with me, and I'm sitting back and I'm listening to the dean, and he says to me, "Well, Mike, what do you have to say for yourself?" And I look right at him and I said, "Sounds like good stuff," which was a callback to a previous line I'd had in the story and got a big laugh. But then what I was doing was I was acting like I was sitting in front of the dean.
Mhm.
The in-person audience is all, if you're in the virtual audience of that, they are all back behind you and over here. And I'm just sitting, and it was really more like right up, I'm sitting down in front of the camera. And there was a point where I said, I said that the dean said, well, Mike, what do you have to say for yourself? And I just went, sounds like good stuff. And laughter starts going, and I just stay there. So I'm not looking at the in-person audience. I'm looking right at playing with, acting like I'm talking to the dean right there, and I'm fully focused on the virtual audience. It's completely zeroed in on the virtual.
The whole audience is in on the joke, I guess. That's
right.
That's the important thing.
Yeah. But at that moment, then they have up on the screens what the virtual audience is seeing. And the virtual audience then, I'm sorry, they have up on the screens in person what the virtual audience is seeing. Out of the corner of my eye, I can see that in the in-person audience, during that part of the story, no one is looking at me in person. They're all looking at the screen. So all of a sudden, I've brought the entire audience into the virtual space. And so what the feedback, and I didn't know if it would work, quite honestly. I didn't know if they, sorry, I'm pulling all my cords back now. I didn't know if it would work, but the feedback that I got back was that those who were in the virtual audience, they felt like they were not second-class citizens. They felt like that they were a part of the entire hybrid experience because I had part of the engagement solely for them. Mm-hmm. Me doing that on stage in person would not have been as effective as me doing it right here in front of the camera, having it projected up on stage. So that's what I would say to your audience. And I want to say to our group when we talk about this is there are people way more creative than I am out there. If we think about those concepts, people are going to come up with some amazing stuff.
Okay.